Party leader of the 36th Guam
click the arrow next to
legislature.
video. Choose virtual background.
Yes.
Okay. I think I can do this
Find
now.
the file, yep.
And I think Jane Flores is getting a tutorial on how to change her Zoom background. Did you want to take care of that first, Jane, before we get going here?
Well, I can't find the virtual background because I guess you have to go to a file.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think there's
Sorry,
some default.
I'm like lame.
No,
Okay,
no.
so-
There's some default ones that have like Golden Gate Bridge.
That's a nice painting behind you, Jane. That's a nice painting.
Well, you know, it
You both
actually
have
is.
nice
There's a
paintings.
story. There's a story behind this painting.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's Judy. It's Judy Flores' first painting of a duendes.
Nice.
Oh, here, wait, I got it. I
Yeah,
think
can we
I
get a look at
do
that?
it. Yeah. Oh, I did it. I think. Okay, I clicked this. Now what?
You're
Then you
frozen.
select-
Jane, you're frozen
You
now.
select.
Yeah.
There.
Hey!
All right.
Yeah. Woohoo!
Yeah.
We're gonna have to send you an advertising bill for that background. don't check your email.
Uh-oh, it's backwards.
No,
No, it's good. It's good over
No.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're
you're right.
good. It's perfect.
Okay.
Anyway,
Yay, you all get to see how techno zero I
Going
am.
on Trish's show right now. Okay.
where were we? There was was there a hearing last night?
Yeah,
on
there
the
was a
minimum wage?
hearing
Okay.
on a bill introduced by Senator James Moylan. Congratulations, by the way, on actually having a public hearing. It's
Yes,
surprise.
actually, it's the first public hearing for the 36th Guam legislature on a measure that's quite important for our economy and helping our small businesses get back. That was for the let me see, bill number 2436, and Jane Flores was one of the. Also, I'm representing the Guam Women's Chamber too, and we had a great public testimony. Over 10 folks testified, and we had even more in written testimonies, and more testimonies are coming in too. So was very pleased with the public comments to the bill.
Did a majority testify in support?
We had everybody of the 10 who testified were all in favor of the measure as it was proposed. Likewise, the other there's over 10 more other written testimonies that came in too that were for the measure as well. So it's not eliminating the next tier of the pay raise increment, which is the 50 cents, which is supposed to happen on March 1st of 2020. It will be actually, the proposal is just to postpone the increase until the following year of March 1st, 2022, from 21 to 2022.
I guess Jane, then, can you provide us the reasons why the Women's Chamber of Commerce is in support of the bill?
Sure. Now we, the Women's Chamber has testified in the past. We've studied this issue, and we have testified in the past for an increase in the minimum wage. And what I did was I just reminded the senators about our forum that we had last year in 2020 is just such a blur. In 2019, in June, we had a minimum wage forum where we had several experts like Joe Bradley from the Bank of Guam, Catherine DeKnight Gale from the Employers Council, Gary Hiles, Charlotte Huntsman from SHRM, Jim Martinez from the Guam Contractors, and Mary Rhodes from GHRA. And we had this forum when we studied the minimum wage, and we had also had a survey, and 46% of our members, who are mostly small businesses, were in favor, and I think 40% were against it, and 11% were undecided, and that was in 2019. But one of the main things to come out of the forum was that the minimum wage should be driven by the economy and by market, by the market. And they were saying that a slight increase in the minimum wage doesn't greatly affect the overall economy or large businesses, but there are issues of compression of wages where you have, if you raise the level of your lowest paid employees, then the employees at the next tier and the next tier feel devalued because they're not making that much money. And there are so many different facets to this issue, and that's what we wanted to relay to the senators, that while we do support the pause in this minimum wage because of the pandemic, we do want you to consider all of these other factors. And one of them is that there are 30. I think the Department of Labor's figure was 35,000 people lost jobs, and so when they come back to work, they're going to come back gradually. Maybe this might be the time to gradually institute that minimum wage. And there are also, the PUA is in effect, and that pays a lot of times people are getting paid more than they would get paid in their normal job with PUA. So they need some incentive to go back to work. So there are so many different facets, and that was basically what our testimony was. But we did understand that, look, with the pandemic, small businesses have taken a huge hit on this. And so we really should pause the minimum wage increase for a year.
Did we ever get any data on how many minimum wage earners there are? And, just so we could see how many people would be affected by this delay?
I want to say that, and 2 years ago when we did this, I think Gary Hiles from Department of Labor said there might have been a couple thousand, but it wasn't a huge amount. And that question was asked, Senator Moylan, I think that question was asked. Senator Amanda Shelton did ask that question, but they don't have the figure right now. That's what they do want to find out.
Right, and also the Guam Chamber, Catherine Castro was able to share with us on our public hearing yesterday on a chat there, an article from Pacific Daily News, which like what Jane was saying, it's 2,000, closer to 3,000 minimum wage earners, possibly. That's based on a PDN article. We can send you that one as well. But we're also awaiting GDOL's official word. It was a question posed by Senator Shelton.
Right. Because when you say it's not that much of an increase, I just want to play devil's advocate here and think about the minimum wage earner who is looking at potentially an extra 30 to 40 bucks on their paycheck every couple weeks. So what would you guys say to those minimum wage earners who have been banking on this increase, and now, because I don't really hear an opposing viewpoint from this. I know that they had pulled the senators, but it wasn't really clear. A lot of them were holding their cards to their vest. So what would you say to these minimum wage earners who are not on the PUA? Maybe some of them earning minimum wage, but they're on reduced hours, so they don't qualify. What would you say to them? Maybe they've been banking on that increase this March. And now, I don't know where the governor stands on this, Jane, but it kind of seems like the wheels are in motion and this thing is going to get through.
Sure, I'll be happy to comment first. Well, yes, I'm sure that will be folks that were looking forward to this, and if the bill does pass into law, it would postpone it for one year. Originally, I believe the measure, Public Law 3538, was passed unanimously by the 35th Guam legislature and felt it was important, and it still today is important. But what has happened in between the passage of that law and the passage of the first increment, which happened back in March, the original increment of 50 cents was happened at the initial part of the pandemic. We've seen, as Jane has mentioned, over close to 30,000 jobs that were affected with either reduced hours or they have lost their job. We know of businesses that have closed, and we had a statement yesterday from Monte Mesa at GPO, where he explained with all his tenants of, let me see, they started out at 75, now they're down to 49. So those are jobs that are permanently gone unless those companies decide to reopen. So with the economy situation now, what was good back in 2019 is no longer the situation we had today. We have less jobs to offer. And we have a great risk of these businesses who want to open their doors they continued to pay their insurance requirements, their rent requirements, and kept on as many people as possible. But to imply this or to enforce, mandate the next 50 cents increase, which actually, overall it's a 30% adjustment for the company when you have people on full time and they give a pay raise, that they have the benefits to include. So it's just, it may be 50 cents to the employee, but to the employer, it's a bigger percentage as well. And then the shops must absorb that cost in whatever service they provide. And where they get their supplies from as well, we'll be passing down that price to those stores too, with the minimum wage increase. So it's a great effect from just that one store owner, because they get all their services from other places too to provide their product for sale. So all those prices are increased. So at the same time, there have been some businesses that have adjusted and made some changes and been able to keep on their employees, and that's wonderful. What the bill is saying is that it doesn't prevent the employer from giving the increase if they so wish, because they're happy and of the performance of their employees, and they also want to keep the best and retain their employees, so not to continue on with training. So it doesn't stop the employer from increasing the wage based on what services they can provide.
Well, whatever companies give a
Chris,
50-cent increase,
yeah.
even though there's a bill delaying it, they should get a medal. If it
Chris,
becomes law. Go ahead, Jane.
I want to add another perspective to this. I don't think that we should look at this, and I'm speaking from the Women's Chamber as the government committee chair and as a member of the Women's Chamber. I don't think that we should look at this as pitting employees against businesses, because if you heard some of the testimony yesterday from small businesses, and we actually had a minimum wage employee yesterday testify, and he said, I'm in favor of the pause because yes, while I want more money in my paycheck, as do most people, he said, I also want a job, and I want a job that provides me health care and this. So if it's a choice between me getting paid more, but somebody else has to lose their job because I get paid more, or I have to lose my insurance benefit because my employer has to pay me more, then I choose to right now, while the economy is at this point, not take this minimum wage increase. And I think that it's not the big bad businesses and the employees, because the businesses, most of these businesses, know their employees, have had their employees on staff for years, and it's heartbreaking. If you had heard some of this testimony, Chris Boletto yesterday, it's heartbreaking to have to tell employees, I have to let you go. We have to close the business because we just can't afford to stay open. That is, you don't want to do that to your employees. They're your friends, they're your family. This is not we're not some big corporate place here. Most of our small businesses, know their employees, know each other. So this is a measure that I think is just trying to keep small businesses afloat for a little while until our economy reawakens. And like, we said in the chamber said in 2019, market forces drive wages. You are going to pay people more to stay on your company when you value them. So, if you come in at minimum wage, and yes, everybody would like to get more money, and like I said, this issue is multifaceted, but it's not pitching employees against businesses, because businesses are trying to advocate for their employees. And that's mainly what we heard yesterday from all the small businesses was, I want to try to stay open, but if I'm forced to pay my employees more, I either have to let some people go, or I have to have them lose their health insurance, or I have to close my doors. And so I think that is something that, needs to be taken into consideration here.
I wasn't trying to pit anybody against anybody. I'm just saying there's people out there earning minimum wage who I'm pretty sure they could use an extra 50 cents an hour. So that my question was
Absolutely.
just what's And then also think it's obviously very interesting that you guys testified in favor of this increase and now are in favor of the delay. But I wanted to ask, as the chair of the government committee of the Guam Women's Chamber, where do you know where the governor stands on this? And if this measure passes, would it be likely something that she would sign into law?
I do not know what she will do. And I don't want to speak for the governor. I think she will take all of the data and all of the testimony that she's given into consideration. That I do know.
Senator Moylan, what kind of feedback have you gotten from your colleagues in the 36th Guam legislature in terms of the likelihood that this will pass?
Well, the bill is co-sponsored also with Senator Mary Torres and Senator Chris Duenas and Senator Frank Bloss Jr. There was a recent news article too that did a survey with the 36th Guam legislature, and if I counted that correctly, it looks like the votes are there for the postponement. And based on the public hearing yesterday of the 10 who testified, and as Jane mentioned, we even had an employee come and testify in favor of the delay, but we had Guam Hotel and Restaurant Association, Guam Chamber, of course, and Fruits as well, and Dusitani, GPO, let's see here, Guam Women's, of course, Guam Realtors Association, and KFC submitted. And for those who weren't able to come, such as KFC, Chinese Chamber, Western Hotel, Payless, Subway, Pacific Star, Guam Contractors Association, Asia Pacific Finance Management, the Korean Chamber of Commerce, Triple J Enterprise, and Baker and Son, all are in favor of just introducing a delay of the minimum wage. And I think those are the voices that we're hearing. We, as Jane has mentioned, it's not pitting anybody against anyone, but just a matter of helping the businesses to allow them to bring back their employees so they can reopen their doors safely, because there's other expenses that they had to do in order to reopen their doors. You know, first they were closed completely, then they can only sell certain things, and then if you're in the restaurant business, you can only open a takeout, and then 10%, and now we're moving it up even further since we've been so successful in getting into P Corp 2. But the cost of the PPEs is all put on upon the businesses too, which we must maintain if we want to keep out of this pandemic to reoccur. So I'm hoping that we need to have this session heard on session floor, this bill heard on session floor in February to meet the deadline of March 1st, which is the next tier increment, just to delay it. So at this speed, I think we can have a public hearing, bring it to session floor and we can vote on it with the legislatures. And I believe we have the momentum to show that this bill will pass.
Just some numbers real quick. According to March 2019 Guam Department of Labor reports, approximately 3,000 members of the workforce earn the minimum wage. That's about 4% of the total workforce.
Right. Yes. And that was reiterated in that news article that was also shared with us. But we're also looking at a 17.3% unemployment rate, according to UOG economic report as well. And our economy, our gross product sales is down by 18.9%. And without the federal government back CARES Act money, which we've pretty much exhausted according to DOA of 1.6 billion, the term was used that we would have been in the great deficit of Guam that we've ever seen. So, and we have a decrease in spending as well, with the close to 30,000 folks that are not able to have lost wages or lost their jobs. And so what happens, they decrease their spending and only spend on necessities like paying your utility bills and putting food on your table too. So I believe what this bill is basically doing is just giving a pause, to allow businesses to also recoup and to bring back their employees, not one, but two, and maybe if they had three, two, and to allow them to build their capital once again, open their doors and make their sales to hire more people. Because after all, that's what it's going to take to get Guam moving again. And that's opening up our businesses safely and hiring people in our small businesses.
For the Women's Chamber, you guys testified, submitted testimony yesterday. Are you guys taking it a step further in terms of reaching out to each senator in the 36th Guam legislature to vote in favor of this bill?
We have
Renee
submitted
or-
our test. Yeah, we have submitted our testimony. And yeah, I think it was enough yesterday. Most of the senators were on there. Yeah, Jane,
Okay.
anything to add?
Well, the testimony goes to the committee, and then they send, I believe
Yeah.
I'm Senator Moylan, they send it to everybody, correct? Yeah, we send it to the committee, and then they send it to everybody. And, you know, like I said, there are many, many facets to this issue, but I think, and I think that all of them should be taken into consideration. So, and, you know, what we mainly heard yesterday from these businesses was we're trying to keep our heads above water and just allow us to do this for a little while longer until we reopen, because I think, like, you know, it was pointed out, most businesses pay their employees more than minimum wage. Most of them.
Right. Well, let me again put on my devil horns here, and let's say that we continue this posture towards full reopening. I mean, it's looking good, right? The number of positives are down, the vaccination effort, I mean, it's to be commended. But let's say, yeah, we do posture towards full reopening and the economy picks back up before the end of the year. Do you think maybe a 6-month delay would be more reasonable?
Well,
or
in our testimony, we did say up to a year. So I think that that would be up to the legislature and Senator Moylan. But, you know, if you know, maybe there could be something in the legislation of the delay up to a year based on, you know, what your business can afford.
Right.
So, you know, because most businesses want to get their employees back, and, you know, if they can afford to pay them more, I'm sure they will.
Yeah, if I may add also, Chris, sure, that option is also available, and there's nothing preventing the employer from doing so if the economy does pick up, and we're all hopeful that shall, because once the economy picks up, then the demand for qualified labor is going to be competitive, and they were going to have to offer something to attract that employee to come to their establishment. But we also are concerned. We know our number one revenue generating is tourism, and from what we can see with Guam Visitors Bureau, that it's not going to be 6 months, and it may not be 1 year. We're doing good things through Department of Public Health and Social Services with our vaccination, and good things with protecting the job locations, right, for the employees and also for their customers. But how do we open that, make that bubble available for our tourists to come back? And that's going to be dependent upon their country's requirements too. So 6 months, you know, it's possible, but realistically, if tourism is our main income for the island of Guam, and close to 1,000, maybe 16,000 of the employees were affected by that from working at the hotels or those businesses that supply services to the hotels. That remains to be seen, and we can have that discussion again in the future too. There's nothing preventing us from relooking at this bill later on if it does become public law.
right on.
Chris, I do want to add that you know, as a member of the Women's Chamber and working with these women and these small businesses, I am so very proud of all of our small businesses that have, you know, on Guam, every single one of them that have become innovative, you know, moved on, they're ordering online, partnered with other businesses to offer services in different ways. I think that, you know, if anything, this has allowed us to rethink how we operate, and maybe we will put tourism in a different light, or, you know, do something to make it that we are not so vulnerable if something else happens. I mean, we saw this with the bird flu and the Asian stock market crash, where something happens outside of our bubble, our paradise, and then it affects us in a great number because we have so much invested in tourism, as we should. We have a beautiful environment. We have, great hospitality, but we also need to prepare ourselves to, for this kind of thing.
What,
And
How concerned should we be? I guess, the president, he rolled out his relief plan, I want to say it was 2 weeks ago. Included in that relief plan was a $15,
$15 million an hour minimum wage.
no.
$15 an hour. Now, from
That-
what I have read of that, and I do not pretend to know a lot about it, but from what I have read, that is a 6-year or more implementation.
Okay.
Right.
So that is not something that, it's not like next year the minimum wage is going to be $15 an hour. Okay. So,
Right, yes, and that's a discussion now coming for our president's intent, and that we've heard that before as well. That still has to get, their discussion too, and Congress would have to pass that as well. But in the meantime, here we are today, and we know based on the testimonies we heard from our small businesses yesterday at the public hearing, this is something we can take action immediately. And as we look to diversify also, we were fortunate in the 35th Guam legislature to invite new industries such as the drone industry that became public law, and also fulfillment and distribution center as new industries to come to the island as long as they qualify, and work it out with GITA on some tax incentives that we're going to attract them to come to Guam and create new jobs and new industries. And hopefully, as Jane has mentioned, if this next pandemic, something new is going to come again, but we'll be more prepared. Like all the typhoons we've gone through, right, where we started and our homes will be destroyed, but now we can survive it. And that's the idea. Just like postponing this minimum wage increase, the idea is that we will survive the situation and move forward.
and I know that this is a sensitive subject, but maybe it's time for Guam to have unemployment insurance.
Yeah,
So-
We've been
there-
saying that
likewise,
since
there's a bill on that.
And that's a big, that's a big thing, because employees and businesses all have to contribute to that.
Yeah.
But, if where there's a will, there's a way, so that we,
Hey,
we are very, very fortunate that we've had all this CARES Act money.
if Jane Flores and Jim Moylan can agree on something, there's definitely a way.
I want to hear Jane's comment. How about part-time legislature, so I can get Jane
Oh,
in
easy
there
now,
as
easy
a
now.
challenger.
She's still got to go to work at Adelup today.
No, no.
You can't have her, James.
You're gonna have to come in the back door.
Well, thank you guys for coming on the show.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Okay, well,
Thank
thank
you
you
very
for having
much.
us.
Good talk.
I appreciate it.
All right, take
Okay,
care.
I'll see you.
Okay.
9:18. Yeah, it's. I think it's tough. It's
Mhm.
tough. It's tough when you see people who advocated so feverishly for this minimum wage increase now saying we should hold off for a year. I'm not even hating. I'm just saying that that's how serious those proponents of this increase think things are, that we just cannot afford it, that small businesses cannot afford it at this time.
Well, clearly they can't.
Yeah,
so,
no,
you
I'm
know,
not saying-
and some are shut down. They're not
Right.
even open
Yeah,
anymore.
but I'm just saying, let's not leave the minimum wage earners out of this conversation, because they don't have a minimum wage earners chamber of minimum wage earners. There's no minimum wage earners association. You know what I mean?
And please give us a call, 637-0097.
Right,
That's
yeah.
the number. 637-0094.
0094.
Oh,
Yeah.
94, sorry. I don't know. That's the news number.
Yeah. And I'm not even coming down one way or the other. I'm just saying that that's a valid part of this. 90% of our conversation we just had was about the businesses struggling, but I also, want to keep.
What
in
did you
mind,
say
yeah.
the percentage of minimum wage
4%
4%
of the
Okay.
total workforce, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And what about the rest of the 96%?
They're not earning minimum wage.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think and obviously with the stats there, it's like you have 3,000 people on the bottom rung of what you can be paid. And then, like they said, there's qualified workers, there's skilled workers who earn much more. So I just get the feeling in my mind, and I have no data to support this at all, but I feel like it's like minimum wage earners, and then the next